Welcome back. In this lesson, moving forward, now the fun part begins. I'm going to go ahead and create our first penetration test program using Python. So the example I'm going to use is a simple locked zip file that you have and you just don't know the password. So you need to crack it open or find out how to go about extracting the password. Okay, so as long as you have the concept and you have the code, of course you can apply it to your own environment as well. So let's begin. First, let me show you what's available and then I'll begin the Python code. So I'm going to go ahead and first navigate to my folders. So here I have a test folder. So I'm going to open this folder and show you two things. First is of course the locked zip file or the RAR file, wherever that is. In this example, we're using the zip file. It's called locked.zip. And the other one is the dictionary.txt file. Now this contains different passwords to the zip file, but I'm not sure which one is the correct password. So I'm going to go ahead first, show you the dictionary file. So here's the file, right, which contains all these passwords. So I'm not sure which one is the correct one. And again, this is just a sample set. You may have thousands and thousands of passwords and complicated passwords, not as simple as these, like New York, Chicago, password 12345, and so on. So a simple dictionary file, dictionary.txt. Let me close this. And here's our locked zip file. So if I were to try to open this file, now this file has something called a picture, but it's locked. If I were to double click on this, it asks me for a password. And again, I'm not sure, 12345. It says wrong password. How about New York? I'm just guessing, right? So it still says wrong password. So how do we go about using Python, create a program using our penetration testing techniques, right? And how do we crack this open? How do we open up our locked zip file? So a fairly simple program that I'm going to demonstrate as our first stepping stone before we move forward into more complex areas such as brute force attack, port scanning, and so on, right? So let's click OK to this or cancel. Close this. Great. So next, I'm going to go ahead and create our code. So I'm going to open up the Wing IDE Professional 5.1, which is the Python editor, so that we can start to write our code to unlock this zipped file. I'm going to go ahead and click on Continue Working because we are on a trial license. By the way, you can use other editors like Sublime, for instance, and you can configure those. Those are free editors, okay? So if you don't want to use this, no problem. It's the same thing, same concept. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and create a new file. So let's call it file new. I'm also going to go ahead and close these files, right? So I'm going to close all first and then start. Don't save any of these files. Let's start afresh. So here we go. So first I'm going to go ahead and write the Python code. Maximize this so it's easier for us to see. All right, let's go ahead. So start with the import. Some modules here. So the first module we're going to import is opt parse. The second one is the import zip file, because we are going to be trying to crack the zip file. And then of course our third is the threading. I'll get more into threading later on, okay? So not to worry at this point, just we're importing these modules, right? And this is called thread. So once we have structured the modules or imported all these modules, let's go ahead with our code. So let me go ahead with the definition called extract, and I'm going to call it zip. Name of the file, which is zip file, or let's call it Z file, and then password. So here's our first definition. What goes in the definition is that it's going to try to extract the password, and then if found is going to print the password, except move on, right? So that's the logic. So go ahead, let's say try, and I'm going to say Z file dot extract all, and then our password is pwd would equal password, some variables here, and then of course I'm going to print if found, right? So let me first put a plus sign here. So password found, put an extra space, and concatenate this with the password, and then use the /n for the line. And then I'm going to say except pass. Great. My next definition would be our main function, and here I'm going to go ahead and use the parser, and this is going to equal to opt parse dot option parser, and then of course I'm going to give it a usage. In other words, eventually when we get to the end of the program and execute this program, it's going to prompt us. Okay, Python is going to ask us, all right, enter the name of the zip file that you want to crack open, and along with the zip file, enter the name of the dictionary.txt file, or whatever the name of your text file is, which contains all these passwords that you've forgotten. So that's why we use the option parser. So I'm not going to use all of these arguments. I'm just going to use a few. So I'm going to say something like usage, and then %prog, and of course I'm going to concatenate this with -f, and then our zip file name, right? So it goes in the greater than or less than sign. It's called zip file, and then our dictionary file is also required. So I'm going to go ahead and say -d for dictionary, and then it's spelled dictionary.t, well, not txt, just dictionary is fine, because we don't know at this point. All right, let's close the parentheses. Next, I'm going to go ahead and say parser dot add option, and then use the -f, comma, and I'm going to go ahead and do some variable dest, for example. I'm going to say zname, comma, and then type is going to be equal to the string, and just enter a new line. I'm going to call it help would equal specify zip file. So that's one of the add options for the zip file. And of course I'm going to also have to add the add option, parser.add option, for the dictionary file. So I'm just going to go ahead and save some time and copy this and paste it, and everything else stays the same except the -f changes to -d, because that's what we use for dictionary, and then this changes to dname instead of zname. Type is string, which is fine, and then we are going to specify the dictionary file instead of the zip file. Okay, great. So you follow along. It's just the same thing. I just copied it and also specified the dictionary details in addition to the zip file. All right, so once we're done with this part, next I'm going to go ahead and assign, let's say, option, or options rather, with an S, and our arguments goes, and this would equal the parser dot parse underscore args and the method. Great. All right, once we have this, next I'm going to do a loop, right? So I'm going to do a conditional statement here. So I'm going to say something like if options dot zname equals none, then also go ahead and add options dot dname for the dictionary also, right? Because we have two things going on here. This also equals none. Put a colon. All right, next let's do a loop. So first I'm going to say print, or a conditional statement rather, parser dot usage, else the zip file name or z name should equal options.zname, and our d name for the dictionary should equals options.dname. So this is again part of our main function. That's what's happening here. So next I'm going to go ahead and do z file equals zip file dot zip file, and then of course the z name. And next I'm going to go ahead and do the pass file equals open, and then our dictionary. Okay, so that's how it's going to match it up. And then do our for line in pass file, because it's going to run line by line. It's going to check one password. If it doesn't find it, it's going to move to the next one. And then if that's not correct either, it's going to move to the third one, and so on. So it's going to continue on till it finds the password for the locked zip file. And that's what we're essentially doing here for the line. For line in pass file. So go ahead and read lines, right? That's exactly what it should do. And then password equals line.strip. And then I'm just going to use the n here for the line. And then our threads, right? So I'm going to set t equals thread, and our target would equal extract underscore the zip file. And then args would equal the z file, comma, the password. And then we are going to tell Python to start, right? To start the threading. So once we're done, then we need our main function. So I'm going to say if, enter a line here, name equals our main, call the main function. Awesome. So you see what's happening here, right? Simple program, simple logic. We need to open up our zip file. We don't know the password. We need to find the password. We need Python to go and look up the dictionary.txt file, loop around each of the passwords, match it up with the lock.zip file, and then see if it finds it. And if it finds it, it's going to unlock it and show me the contents. Okay, perfect. Let me go ahead and save this, and I'm going to call it, let's say, openzip.py. Go ahead and save it in the test folder so everything stays in one place. Click save. Great. Let me minimize this. So here's our openzip.py, and of course our two files still exist within the test folder. Let's go ahead and execute the Python folder and unlock the zip file. So let me go ahead and open the terminal here. Since we're using Kali Linux, you need to be comfortable with the terminal. Great. Do the ls, and we have our openzip.py. Let me run it. Python openzip.py. Great. So this time it asks for the arguments, right? And it asks us the name for the zip file that we want to crack open, and of course along with that we also need to supply the dictionary. So here I'm going to go ahead and say Python openzip.py, and then -f with the name of the file. In this instance it's up here, right? So it's locked.zip. So locked.zip, and then of course our dictionary, and this name would be dictionary.txt, which is right here. Great. Let's enter. And excellent. So it found the password called login, right? So this is the correct password for the zip file. And notice what it did was that it also populated and extracted the picture. In other words, the contents of the locked zip file. So if I were to, let's say, open the JPEG image, it'll say, congrats, you cracked the zip. Okay, so this way you can simply open up a locked zip file using a simple Python program. So for example, if I were to, let's say, click on the locked zip this time and try to open it, asks me for the password, and the password found was login. Enter. Perfect. It displays the picture. So I hope this helps. Practice, and let's move to the next lesson.